Someone once said that my videos were kind of like stream of consciousness. I'm going to turn this music up a little bit, even though it's kind of annoying, but that's what's going to be in the background. But anyway, somebody once commented that on one of my videos, and I understand the sentiment. It's really not accurate to say that it's stream of consciousness, because usually I have something specific that I'm talking about. But in this video, I decided I'm just going to start talking. My videos aren't getting popular at all, and so it's making me feel like a little bit more liberated to I don't know, not feel like I have to say something that's going to get into the algorithm. I don't really know how the algorithm works, and I don't want to be like Mr. Beast. I don't like Mr. Beast. I don't like these people. You got the hustle culture, and it's like, I just want to kick you in your balls, But anyway, so this one's going to be kind of stream of consciousness. And so I'm going to have to close those blinds. People, it's become fashionable to make fun of George Carlin. Because fashions come and go, especially on the internet, and people are saying that he's like a Reddit person on Reddit, I really don't agree. I understand that he was basically kind of a shitlib, but it doesn't matter to me what his politics are, because he seems to be relatively independent-minded, and the only stand-up special that I've seen of his was his bullshit, it's bad for you. I think that's what it was called, it's bad for you. Special on HBO, I guess. And he started it by saying, I'd like to start by saying fuck Tiger Woods, and fuck him and his, wives and his endorsements, something like that. And then he said, and while you're at it, fuck Lance Armstrong. I'm tired of him and his balls and the big dumb expression on his face and his bicycles and just something like that. And the point of that is not, first of all, I intensely dislike Tiger Woods. I just think this guy's such a fucking asshole. Yikes. And Lance Armstrong, I don't think he's an asshole. I think he's very intense, very focused on winning, but, and that can create an annoying personality, but I do think he has a sort of spiritual center. So I don't feel that way about him. But, and then George Carlin said, aren't you tired of being told who to emulate and who to look up to in this country? Aren't you tired of being told who your heroes are? And it resonated very strongly with me, because I'm tired of it, because there's this sickness going on in this country where people are talking about working hard, and the reason young people are having a hard time is because they're not working hard, and I have to laugh because it's just such intense bullshit. There have always been lazy people. I've known lazy people. Let me say something. Two of the laziest people that I've worked with, I don't like calling people lazy, okay? I think it's an ironic insult, because a lot of times the insult itself is lazy. But I've known lazy people that I've worked with. Though two of the most lazy people were, promoted to assistant manager. There's something off. And then you could say, well, work smarter, not harder. You could say, well, they have they have some sort of charisma, and they're schmoozing and they're bullshitting, and I would say, okay, yeah, maybe. First of all, it depends on who you like. Like, I just spoke to somebody, and he gave me a job offer. I'm happy about it, but at the same time, I'm just like, I guess we're going to be doing retail again. and I'm going to be able to survive now, but again, kind of like barely, so it's not really a step up. But the point is, when I saw this guy and we met up, and I had talked to him on the phone for a while, we kind of clicked. And so if somebody likes you, it's just that much more likely that you're going to be able to elevate in the positions within some sort of hierarchy, So these two, but there's an irony there, because the boomers like to talk about how kids are lazy and shit. I should have chosen the music beforehand, but this is the music in F-Zero right after you beat a level, and I kind of have to have something on. But anyway, so this guy knew that I had had experience and stuff like that, but he also, we liked each other because we both had a certain, there's a type of person that I get along with who's sort of like low key. There's another type of person who's completely balls to the wall fucking fake all the fucking time. And that type of person I don't really like, and also they don't like me. Like, it's reciprocal, so I think that's the word. But so in that circumstance, it's going to be that much less likely to work out. But what I've seen in my life and what I've observed is with the workplace, the workforce, is that it has, I don't know what percent to put on it, but relatively little to do with how hard you work, But yeah, this is what I've noticed, and if I wanted society to be like a utopia, which I do, I really want society to become, I want us to have a beautiful life, and I don't know, that can't happen right now because things are too screwed up and too entrenched. And I don't think it's going to happen, I don't like to say this, but until a large amount of violence occurs. Because of what you see historically, but maybe if we come to some sort of utopia where we have a shared brotherhood in man or something, we won't get to it by violence, because that would be like, the part of getting there would be not having violence, But with the wealth disparity going the way it is, it's a train, it's a runaway train that's not, nobody's doing anything to stop it. They're talking about how they're concerned. Like, you get someone like Elon Musk or whoever, whatever rich person, Ray Dalio, they're talking about how they're concerned, but they're not doing anything. Because doing something would be like, okay, let's get together. Anyone who has a worth of over $100 billion, we're going to get together and pool our resources and say, this money would ease a whole lot of suffering in this country. But that's not going to happen. And by the way, I know that somebody might say, well, money is just representative. It's just digits on a screen. I know, but the money translates. The reason they have those digits on the screen is not because they have piles and piles and piles of, $100 bills like Scrooge McDuck. It's because they have assets that are valued at something. So at the end of the day, if there were to be a redistribution, it would have a lot to do with people not owning 20, 30, 50, 100, hundreds, thousands of properties. And in some cases where nobody's living in that house or whatever, That's what, it wouldn't be so much about money, although it might take form in that way, but it would be more about, like, finally, some of these assets that are basically not being used because rich people hoard them will now be able to be either owned or shared by people who were formerly poor. But anyway, so I've observed. It's just been my observation. I'm 47. It's a depressing thing for me to say. I don't like to say it. I'm one of those people who, when I was in my 20s, the idea of being over 30 was sort of surreal to me. And then you can say, well, that was short-sighted of you, or what were you planning? And I didn't have a plan. All I knew is how I felt about it. But now this is my existence. Anyway, so I've been in the workforce for a while now. And what I've observed is that it's not the people that work harder. It just isn't. It's an unfortunate reality. And ironically, it's not even that the correlation is zero, which I'm not saying it is, but it's a low correlation. It's not like you could take a super duper hard worker and that person just wouldn't get ahead, for various reasons. But like I said, it's been a sort of inverted thing that I've noticed, which is that it seems like some of the lazier people go up in the ranks, for whatever reason. And by the way, I don't want to talk about something too personal, but the various places that I've worked at, I didn't want to be a manager. It doesn't make my dick hard to think about bossing people around, and that's some people's, that's the kick that they get in their day, is to belittle someone and make someone feel small. It's just not, it doesn't do it for me. That's not, what I enjoy. But yeah, I am tired of being told who to admire in this country, and all the stuff that George Carlin was complaining about, in that you can watch it because it's actually kind of prescient, if that's how to pronounce that. And so, he's talking about the iPhone or smartphones or something. And it also sort of relates to what Kurt Cobain was talking about when he said, in the future the technology will be so good that somebody will be on his virtual reality machine, like passed out or dead, like a junkie, like they OD'd on virtual reality. Now, I'm not saying this is why he killed himself, but I think things like that, where you see life becoming more synthetic, more. In other words, you're not going back on it. There's not a movement where people are saying, life is too synthetic. If anything, it's a ramping up of that, And there's not a huge movement from the power structure saying that AI is so fake. People should learn to really write. You need to get educated, and people need to learn how to write and to tap into their creativity. You can use AI, but you shouldn't overuse it. It's the opposite of that, because everything is about money. And it's become like a disease, and I don't... when I was growing up, it was very obvious that money kind of facilitated life in a way, but it wasn't an obsession the way it is now. And so when you're talking about my cat's trying to piss me off, I'm going to ignore it. When you're talking about someone like Kurt Cobain, and he's saying he did that little diatribe where he was talking about how music was so rehashed and it felt like there was nothing new under the sun, and that music wasn't going to a good place. I think that affects certain people a lot more deeply than others. Because if you care about art, and you care about, there's a few different types of people. There are certain people that really only give a shit about money and status. So, the drive of their existence is basically to make more and more money. And I'm not saying that all rich people are like that, because I don't think that. But there are certain people who it's just like, oh man, if I could just have a Mercedes, then I'd feel really cool or whatever. And a lot of those people get that. They tend to get that. Because if you're focused on something that direct, it's relatively easy to obtain. I mean, after some hard work or whatever, but it's not a will-o'-the-wisp type of thing, nebulous, you want to be a rock star or something. I mean, that's not nebulous either, but it's more complicated. If your goal is to just make a whole bunch of money, all you need to do is find a way to do that and to invest and stuff like that, and make friends with people who have a lot of money, because what George Carlin said, where it's a big club and you're not in it. Obviously, that's not some sort of technically correct thing to say, but the way that society works is basically people with a lot of money associate with other people with a lot of money, very intentionally. And the people that I'm friends with tend to be people that have a similar small amount of money. That most of my friends that I know on the internet, and those are my real friends, just unfortunately, I don't mean that to sound cool or something. I guess it sounds the opposite of cool, but it's just what it is, The people that I would consider friends, I guess, they all have more money than me, because they come from intact families, whereas I'm like the weird loner person. Like my last girlfriend, she was estranged from her father, but because she was a woman, I knew there was something else going on, and that it was one of these like daddy issue things. But that's not the point even. And her mother, unfortunately, had died, like, when she was a kid. But, her family was intact. She was very good friends with her brother, and they would hang out. And she had a sister who she had an on and off relationship with, and she had in total, I remember she told me, but she had like, I think 11 or 12 siblings. So that's another story. But the point is, like, a lot of people have like intact families and stuff, and I don't have that. So, but it's just what it is. It's normal. But the people that I know online, they tend to be from a similar sort of background, in terms of their income. In other words, they're not rich. That's really all I'm saying. Like, because it's not about how poor I am or whatever, and the fact is your upbringing affects that. So even though I have very little to my name, the way I was brought up was in a different circumstance, and I think it affects how I act, even in an unconscious way, and it affects how other people see me. Someone said I had a rich sounding voice, something like that. I don't know. If you don't have a heavy accent, I think you're going to sound a little bit more like you come from an upper class family, because any family that it's just what I've noticed. People with the heaviest accents tend to come from like sort of like white trash background type of thing. For whatever reason, it's like a sociological thing. But yeah, that Kurt Cobain diatribe and the "It's Bad for You" comedy special, those both were, portents of what was to come, and they were so sadly accurate, because they were foreseeing a dystopia that we're now living through. And the most important part, in my opinion, the most important part you can take in this, besides somehow, hopefully this wouldn't have to happen, but if there were some sort of actual conflict, then you might have to put your ass literally on the line, in a way where you could become hurt, but you in that context you would have to make a contribution, because that's what war is. But I don't want to see that. But I'm just saying, sometimes it feels like we might be headed that way. But the most important contribution you can really make is to just say, no thank you, I don't like you, and I don't admire who you're telling me to admire, And guess what? I understand that the hustle culture thing is a cope for boomers, and it's bullshit, and it's illusory. And I don't want what you're selling, you know. So that's why I was saying when it came to those, what's it called? Commencement speeches. And by the way, commencement means, I think people listening to this know this, but ironically it means the beginning of something. It's a weird word to use for the end of your college years, and you're graduating, but it's called a commencement. It's a little bit weird because you're thinking of it as finally I'm getting the fuck out of here, That's what I would be thinking. But anyway, so these people do these NPC types of functionary types of people doing speeches about, hey, you can boo all you want, but AI is here and it's here to stay. And then the people are saying, no, we don't like you. You're ugly, we don't like you and we don't like AI. We don't like what you're selling us. It's very important because you could say, well, it doesn't mean anything. Is that they can say whatever they want and the companies are going to do whatever they want. No, I don't agree. Because you see, these companies have to operate under some conceit that what they're selling is useful and beneficial to humanity. So if people are saying, whatever you're selling is making me miserable, then they can't continue in the same way. And also they can't pretend, So like someone like Jeff Bezos, I don't know. He's not a great example because what's he doing in AI? Like, I don't even know. What does Amazon do? What's their bullshit AI? I don't know. I don't even know offhand. But, so someone like Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, even though you know that he has some sort of lead executive role, I don't know what his official role is right now, but you know that he probably has some sort of, guiding role in Google. If people boo him and tell him, because he's a person who's used to getting his ass kissed, and he's used to having people be afraid of him. Eric Schmidt's in the building. Make sure your computer is, on task. It's on the Google editing tool that that type of thing. And my response to that would be like, bye-bye. I don't want to be in that environment. But he's used to, he's a person that's used to having people be having his ass kissed. So having people say, have I ever told you that you're a genius? I mean, do you even know that? That type of thing. Or he's used to having people be afraid of him. Yes, Mr. Schmidt, whatever. Then behind his back saying, I mean, shit, or whatever. So he's used to having people be afraid of him and used to having people kiss his ass. The reason it's relevant and that it's meaningful is because he's not used to this. He doesn't understand how much people fucking hate AI. He's read a couple articles where people are skeptical about it or something, or he's read a few YouTube comments from random people, but thinking that, okay, you got a few people, he doesn't understand the extent of it. Now people are putting it in his fucking face. He can't deny it as much as he wants to, People are angry about these forces that are attempting to sort of subvert the human soul, all in the name of profit. Really, is that what our lives have become? Like, money is worth so much more than like having a happy life? That's really weird to me. Or having a meaningful life. So these people they don't have plausible deniability anymore, like I said. They can. So a skeptical person might say, well, it doesn't matter what they say. again, like I said, it does, because previously they were operating under the what me worry. I don't. People love AI. Mark Zuckerberg. People love our new metaverse, where everyone looks like, me, whatever, the me avatars from the Wii. People love our new metaverse, and he has to speak in this corporate speak. And meanwhile, it's people are finally starting to say in a public forum. So these colleges are going to have to be careful now who they invite. Because it's happened several times. But people are saying, no, please understand, we don't like you, and we don't like AI. You can do whatever the fuck you want, because you don't care, but it's not helping us, and we don't want it. Anyway, I think I might do another video before too long if I have time. Now I have to figure out if I have to, because I have to drive somewhere, to figure out if I have enough time. But, yeah, either way, I think I'm going to be doing another video later. So anyway, have a nice day. Thanks for listening.